So today we're going to show you how I groom Winnie. Just the basic grooming without any of the additional things like ear cleaning, toenail clipping, paw trimming, that sort of stuff. Yeah, I mean, this really, if she's not terribly matted, this only takes 20 to 30 minutes max without any of those additional things that I mentioned. And we do it every day. So here we go. We start on our side. We start always on this side, I don't know why. And I have her lie down, and then I just get all my tools out and ready to go. So I don't have to reach for anything. But if I do, it's all right here, which is why I love having my grooming station all set up. And I'm going to go through my tools in my grooming stuff video. I don't know what to call that yet. But you can see that another time. And before I get her, before I start, I pick out the bow I'm going to use. So today it's kind of gross out, so I thought I'd do kind of a black and white bow. And I thought maybe I would use this one. And if you watch my grooming station video, you will recognize this is what I keep all of Winnie's bows in. And I just keep them in the plastic little baggies so they stay, neat and nice. And usually she'd be wearing a bow, but she's not today because I took her bow out last night, in which case I would, leave that thing out to put her bow back. But so I have her bow, and I have her brushes and combs, and I have the bands. And then the last thing is I take one section, these are like the small Selecta-size paper towels, and I make it kind of damp. I wring out the water, and this is what I use on her face. Occasionally, and in the past, I used to use this product, this Show Off by Chris Christensen, which is an instant no-rinse coat cleaner, but she doesn't really like it. I think it's got some strong chemicals in it, so I only use it if she's really dirty, which doesn't happen very often. And you'll have to excuse the thunder in the background. So I'm going to get started, and I'll probably voice this over, so you guys can follow along. Oh, I forgot to mention that I use the Ultimate Detangling Spray from Crown Royale, watered down, on her coat every morning when we're grooming. So to start the grooming process, I have Winnie on her side, as you see, and I just part her hair down the side, sort of down the middle horizontally, to sort of divide it into two parts. And I take the grooming spray and just lightly spray a fine mist over her, the section I'm working on. And starting with the pin brush, I just work through her coat, sort of going from the top of the section down to the bottom, and I always start at her back side, where her back leg is. And generally, when I come across mats, they're usually in sort of her leg or armpits. So it's easy to figure out where a mat is because the pin brush, the other brush that I use, gets kind of stuck. And you can feel the mat. And so then I switch to the triangle slicker brush, which I'm using here, to get through the mats without ripping her hair out. This brush is designed to do that. It's much more effective than the pin brush at getting out mats, and it's much safer for her coat and her skin to use that. I work my way up her body, the length of her body, all the way up to her face, and again another place where she's likely to mat is under her ears and in her armpits, and on her chest. These are just areas for some reason where her hair is a little more downy and there's just more friction, especially in her leg and armpits, and then around her neck where her collar rubs. She does not wear her collar all the time, otherwise she would be one big knot around her neck. She only wears it when she's out of the house. But again, just looking at this, you can see it might look a little rougher than it actually is. I don't pull very hard at her hair, but I do use light, quick movements, sort of flicking the brush towards me as I work. This just helps ensure that I catch all the knots, that I get all of her hair. So I start basically at her skin, but I don't pull on her skin. And especially when I'm using the slicker brush, which you see here, it's very pointy and very sharp. I'm very careful not to come in contact with her skin with that, although I do get down to the root of the hair. That way I can get the knot out from its origin, because if a knot starts, it can pull on the skin, and that's why you want your dog to not have mats. Now, after I get through the whole length of her coat this way, then I take the comb, as you can see I'm using here, the butter comb by Chris Christensen, and I mention all of these products and exactly what they are in my favorite grooming products video, which I will link below. Sometimes, and the reason I use the comb is to get through the hair, make sure I've gotten everything basically. It's not really to do any further grooming, maybe a little bit, but it's just really to comb through, pun intended, and make sure I've gotten all the knots. And sometimes I find some that I haven't gotten through. A little hair does come out in the brush and in the comb, which you'll see that I do pull out after I've done each section. And again, I just kind of go through in the same pattern that I do the brushing, from back to front, sort of horizontally up this section, half of her side, I suppose. Paying special attention to her paws, with the comb especially, because her hair's so much shorter there, sometimes it's hard to get the brush down there. Then I always clean the slicker brush at each section, at the end of each section, which you just saw. I took the fine edge of the comb and cleaned it. Now I am parting her hair sort of basically down the middle of her back, so I'm getting the other section of this half of her body, the top section. This does not get as matted generally as the bottom section. Up towards her neck where her collar will rub, we'll get a few knots now and then, and down by her, her bottom where her tail is. But as you can see, I went through the top section with the brush much quicker than I went through the bottom section, and I'm already working on the comb. This just tends to be the case. The top section just tends to be easier. The hair doesn't get quite as matted, with the exception of during the winter time when she's wearing a coat, and then it will get more matted. And then I always catch her tail at this part, because you'd be surprised how many mats she can get in her tail. Pull out the hair out of the comb, and then we flip her over for the other side. And I'm going to show you a sped up version, because I basically do the same thing on this side. Split her hair down the middle, and here we go. I just wanted to show you that Winnie's belly is shaved during the summer months to keep her cool, and so I don't have to groom that during the summer months, but basically it's the same process. So now that I've finished both sides, I clean out the brush as I do on all sections, and I flip her onto her belly so that I can do her back and her chest. And using the grooming spray again, as with all sections, I lightly spray just a very small amount, a little goes a long way, and then I brush her hair back away from me so that I'm able to part it evenly down the middle. Now taking the fine tail comb, I use the pointy side, obviously, to put in a part. And I start at the top of her head. There's a little nub kind of at the back of her head, which tells me it's the center of her head, through her shoulder blades, and then down her back along her spine. I just trace her spine basically with the comb down to her tail. And that really ensures the straightest part. Then I take my pin brush and I just go through her coat again on each side, because I tend to miss knots up at the top here when she's laying on her side. So when I have her on her stomach, it's easier for me to find them. And again, around this area that you can see right now is where her collar will rub, and will create some knots. I generally don't find quite as many knots anywhere else except for sometimes towards her tail when we're doing this section. And then I just repeat the process on the other side of her. So it's just like before, where I kind of split her body per side. It just makes it easier to get through the grooming that way, to do it in sections like this, and ensures that I'm doing the same thing every time, so Winnie knows what's coming. It's not like new and surprising to her. We've been doing this routine basically since she was 3 months old. She's over 2 now, so she is used to this. This is an everyday occurrence. And you can see again, I use the comb just to make sure basically I've not, left any knots. And when I do come across some, as with before, I use the slicker brush to work them out. And that just seems to be the most effective. Clean out the comb, and we're on to her chest. So to do her chest, now Winnie knows when to put her head down and when to lift it up. So she's very good at that. Again, practice makes perfect. When you do something every day with your dog, they're going to learn what you expect from them. Also, using positive reinforcement helps. I go through her chest with the pin brush to start, just as all other sections, and I do from the center of her chest all the way down to her ears and just behind her ears. These sections can get a little more knotted. This is where her hair is a little more downy, and it's where her collar rubs. And so occasionally I'll have to go in with the slicker brush and get out some mats, but it wasn't too bad this time, you can see. And then again I go through with her comb, with the coarse side of the comb, just making sure that we're all free and clear in the mat department. I forgot to mention before that I really only use the fine side of the big comb to clean out her brushes. I use the coarse side for all of the combing through of her hair. Except with the exception of her top knot hair, sometimes I do use the big comb, the fine side, the big comb, the fine side for that, but not all the time. Then I take my damp paper towel, which I showed you earlier, to clean out her eyes. Now, you do not want to touch your dog's eyeball with anything, your finger, anything. Having the damp paper towel, it just kind of grabs the goobies, the eye goobies as I call them, at the edge of the eye, and then it'll pull them out of the eye. That way I don't actually have to touch her eye, but I can clean her eyes very effectively this way. And I basically pull them out of the corner of her eyes and down into her mustache, her face hair. Then I use the damp paper towel to kind of moisten her face, so I can use the small face comb, which you can see here. I start with the coarse side, and I lightly, very carefully go through her mustache, her face hair, especially under her eyes, to get out any goopies or crusty things that could have happened from eating. Here you can see I have collected some eye goopies. It's good to get them out of the coat because then they can start to smell and create a bacteria infested area, and your dog can get like a yeast infection in their face and stuff like that. So it's good to keep this area clean. I use the fine side of the comb just after I've gone through with the coarse side to remove any of the eye goopies or crusty things that might have accumulated there. And that's basically it for that part. I find it best to be really diligent about this, because then your dog's eyes will be clear and their face won't smell bad and they won't get a bacteria infection. Now we're on to her top knot hair. I put her grooming pillow around her neck. She knows to put her head down. And I remove the bands using band scissors. They have this slightly curved edge that can hook under the band, making it easy to pull it away and then clip, so you don't run the risk of accidentally cutting their hair. You want to pull the band far away from the hair using the band scissor and then clips, so you do not cut your dog's hair. I remove all the bands this way, and then I take and put the scissors away immediately. Always when using scissors with a dog, put them away immediately. And I use my slicker brush very lightly, again, not coming in contact with her skin, just to kind of comb through the area. Top knots tend to create mats. Then I take the fine tail comb again, and using obviously the tail side, I create a part at her stop. Now the stop is the place just above your dog's nose in between their eyes, and the way I measure where to put the stop is kind of where the corner of her eyes line up naturally. And this generally stays in place throughout the day. I just usually have to touch it up every day, but then the part in general stays as it is. It creates sort of a nice look for the dog and also helps keep the face out of her eyes. Then, using the tail side of the comb again, I start creating her top knot. Now, I did film another video showing how I put Winnie's hair in her top knot in more detail, which I will be posting at a later time, but I just thought I'd walk you through it here now, because really, you can't have too much instruction when it comes to learning how to put your dog's hair in a top knot. Like I said, I use the tail comb to part her hair into a bit of a diamond shape, really, from her stop up to a point sort of midway to the top of her head. And this is just something I've come to know where it is over time, but you can see I just put my finger down to feel where the top of her head is. Like I said before, there's a little bump at the back center top of her head. So about halfway up to there, or maybe a little more than halfway, that's where I'm going to put in her first band to create a single top knot. Yeah, I'm just fixing here. I'm a bit of a perfectionist, so what can you do? But I'm using a 5/16 inch clear band. Oh, here I am getting out all the bands. Sorry. I'm getting out all the bands so we can see. Usually I do this before I start doing her hair. I must have forgotten because I was thinking about filming. But I use two 5/16 inch bands and 1/4 inch, and I will tell you where I use those. So one 5/16 inch band goes around this first section, which is a thicker section. I take the band, I kind of use my teeth to get my fingers looped around it, and then I put it over the hair once. And then I make adjustments. Sometimes I need to pull out some hair, sometimes, I need to fix some things. And then I wrap it around once more. And then I pull at the corners of her eyes to make sure it's not pulling on her eyes. Again, I'm going to go into more detail when I post this video separately of her top knot. And then to do the back section, I sort of make an inverted triangle up to that bumpy knob at the top of back side of her head. That's where the point of this triangle will be, down to meet the triangle that I just put in of the first half of her top knot. And again, a bit of a perfectionist, so I like it to look nice and straight. But it's more functional, really. It's just to keep the hair out of her face. And instead of having it all in one band, breaking it up into two knots like this just makes there be less pressure on one band. Then I take the 1/4 inch band that I showed before, and I put this in her hair in the same way. I kind of put it in my teeth to sort of get it, looser so I can fit it around my fingers, because I only have one hand since I'm holding on to her hair with the other hand. Again, I put the hair around once, make sure it's all set, pull out anything that doesn't have to go into that one knot, and then I loop it around one more time. There. Now you can see I have the basic structure of her top knot in. Then I take her bow, and I put the bands around my fingers, and I put this over the first top knot that I put in, the first half here, and I make sure the bands are perfectly straight. Now this is important, otherwise your bow won't lay flat. I just, you can see here, I just kind of roll them so they're straight and then push it close down to the original knot. Then I gather up both knots of hair, take my last 5/16 inch band, and band both of the ponytails together over the bow bands. This is called locking in the bow. This just ensures that the bow is not going anywhere. I wrap this final 5/16 inch band around 3 times to ensure that it is safe and snug. And there you have it. That's it. We're all done. All ready to go for the day.
And we're all done. And we shake out. We get a quality check. Quality check. Yes, good girl. Let me put baby on the floor. Always a good girl. Always a good girl. Then we take our picture. Come over here. Can you film me too? Yeah. All right. Sit. Down. Good. Come on now. Good girl. Winnie, you want your cookies? Yeah. Okay. Now we get our cookies from the bin. Cheese, please. We get 4 cookies for all of our patients. Sit. Wait. Wait. While she's waiting, I start cleaning up. Wait. And cleaning up is really just taking the hair out of the brush. I just use the finer side of the big comb to do so. And you'll see that the brush does get a little bit scuzzy on the sides because she's picked up some dirt. But I just used my damp paper towel to kind of clean that off. And make sure these combs are clean. Put that away. And that's it. Deliciousness ensues. So it's pretty basic. That took exactly 22 minutes. It was one of the faster ones, I suppose, but I hope you guys enjoyed. Bye!